Welcome to a comprehensive ice guide of TrackMania. I'm Brody, and I myself think that I know the logic of ice. I will try to teach you this surface as much as I can. We will look at every common ice technique separated into 4 levels. There will be preparing, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Also, I will show 3 ice tracks on the summer campaign, so hopefully you can improve your times. Let's slide into the action. If you're new to the ice or the game, you might think, this surface is way too hard for me, I'm not gonna play this shit. Think about my argument. Most of the player base is below decent on ice, as I observed. So even if you become decent on ice, you're gonna eliminate big percentage of the player base. Well, let's think that you encountered with ice in a few times. You might say, on the surface the car is literally going bonkers and it's uncontrollable. My argument to that one is, mappers designed those ice maps for flowy gameplay, except if it's RPG or a trial. So if you learn how ice works, it will definitely improve your times and it'll look more aesthetic. Lastly, if you are saying, I think I'm doing everything correct, but Alcon or Mika or whatever he is or she is still 3 seconds faster than me. How? Well, I will cover what makes you faster or slower and show some of the hardest lines in the campaign in this video as well, but you cannot suddenly learn those. But as I said, those are just to prepare your mindsets, so let's jump to the techniques. One of the most mistaken and misunderstood blocks by beginner ice players has to be ice wall rides. I see everyone adjusting during an ice wall ride. This costs you so much time, then you save. A perfect ice wall ride should look like this. The logic on ice wall rides are less input equals more speed. It's easy as that, right? If your line is okay to make no inputs, just don't, and you will end up with a faster exit speed. If you have to climb an ice wall ride, don't try to create your apex with low momentum. This would work on platform blocks, but on ice, you have to climb as fast as possible. Because the more you slide during setting up an apex, the more speed you lose. It's easy as that, right? So, be aware of setting up your entrance, and it should be crucial, but it's just that simple. Bobsleighs looks fairly simple, but you can find small amount of speed. If you're a keyboard player while doing a bobsleigh, in 50% action key, by the way, imagine using an action key, is the best way to go. If you're a pad player, well, you have to be precise and get your turns on 50%, or you can bind action keys on your pad too. Imagine binding action keys on your pad. Oh, okay. You can gain more speed compared to any other strategy, but some exceptions may occur. In high speeds, bobsleighs can be a little bit turbulent, so in that case you have to find the right percentage or even 100% steering. Faster you go equals the more you need to steer, but in the most case scenario is 50% steering movement is the best. I think this part is the most important part of ice. An ice slide is like a drift on platform, but it's a little slippery. To execute an ice slide, you have to turn to a certain amount of angle and perform a counter steer afterwards. If you want to keep your ice slide, you have to tap brake precisely, and that makes your car stay sideways, as you can see on the example. Unfortunately, it's not easy as it seems. This will decide your overall ice performance. There are some crucial things that you have to watch out. For example, oversteering, the most important thing in my opinion. Losing gears, gaining gears, releasing times, and let's take a look at the first one, aka oversteering. When you perform an ice slide and setting up your car way too right or way too left, you'll end up oversteering. This gives you less speed, but higher turn angles, so if you want to be fast, try not to oversteer and adjust your turning before you counter steer. This is so important. But in some exceptions, oversteer can be good as well. There are some rare turns that you have to slow down and turn harder. In that case, oversteering with a brake tap can be useful too. Also, straightening your car while oversteering is way easier, but it's slower as I said. Releases are useful in most of the cases to finish and seal a turn. You can straighten your car easily after you release within a millisecond. But keep that in mind, release makes you slower because you release. So if there's an opportunity to try to straighten while going full speed. So it's time to most disappointing part. Have you ever ended up in this situation? I'm pretty sure your answer to that question is yes. And well, fortunately, it's not random. Yep. Gears on ice are very tricky and you have to predict your gear, and this will require some time. But once you get it, you can easily prevent quote-unquote random slides. So let's take an example on Summer 20 and watch the footage. So why did that happen? Well, just before entering the ice, I gain a gear, and practically I lose speed and I'm going uphill. This forces the gear down, and when the gear changes on ice, you slide. In a bad way. How can I prevent this? Well, I can release just before the entrance of ice slide. In that way, I enter the turn with lower gear and I cannot gain or lose gear. With that, I cannot get random slides, and with a mini release, I can turn much more comfortably. So it's a win-win in every case. How about the end turn on this track, which pisses everyone off? Well, this is a bit tricky. First, we have to observe the turn. What should we do? We can dive and stay at the inside while preserving as much as speed as possible. How we can do that? We have to turn while releasing and forcing a gear down. Let's watch the footage. This feels unnatural in first look, I know, but this is the fastest way. And also you force the lower gear and this makes you immune to slide out, because you cannot gain any gears and lose either. I hope those examples will help you comprehend what gears are about, and let's move on to the next topic. Just like dirt and grass, on ice you can wiggle as well, but it's a little bit tricky. Unlike on dirt and grass, you cannot do instant left-rights on ice, so you have to be a little precise on ice. You can use 100 steer movement and it still be faster than a press forward, but 80% steer movement is way to go. What you have to care about is, you have to find the sweet spot on steering. If you understeer or oversteer, you'll end up randomly turning around and going more slow than pressing forward, so it requires small amount of training. I think this one is kinda unnecessary, but just for the style points, let's cover it up. So the logic is 360 can be done in rare cases, and it can be used in really sharp turns. If you think a turn can be done in 360, first you have to consider doing it in the normal way. Because 360 is mostly slower than a normal turn, so you have to judge it first. To perform a 360, you have to press brake until your car slides enough to turn to the other side. Never forget, the more you brake, less exit speed you get, so consider braking as less as possible. It requires considerable time of training to perform it good, so good luck making those wicked turns. So you learned everything, I hope. But just like other surfaces, it requires time to improve and master ice. Let's analyze one of the craziest ice turn executed by Alcon 21. This turn is in Summer 23, has notoriously gained some fame in player base of how hard it is. For sure, it's a painful turn, but let's watch how Alcon overcomes this turn. First, he approaches the turn with a great speed, then he intentionally slows himself by touching the snow, not much, not less. He dives with a brake tap plus a micro release, so the turn radius is higher. He dives very inside of the turn and touching the snow just near the flags. How mind-blowing it is. As I said, you cannot learn those things suddenly, but with a considerable amount of training, you can get there. I believe in you, okay? Now I will show how you properly play the current ice tracks on Summer 2021, which are 12, 20, and 23. Let's jump right into the action though. This track is a mixed track, mainly built on ice. The track itself is not that complicated and it's actually fun to drive, but maxing out your limits is a little tricky. So let's dive in. The trick already starts in the beginning. You have to dive straight to the turbo without any air time, and this will make you stay on the turbo as much as possible. Then with a right-left zigzag, maintain your line. While gliding on ice, try to not make any inputs onto the platform and try to end up at the end of the snow block at the exit of ice Wallride. At the platform, you can finally make inputs and adjust your line for diagonal downhill drop to the tube. Before reaching the tube, you can do speed drifts to maintain more speed. This track is momentum based, so if you collect more speed, you can carry the speed for a long amount of time. Stay inside at the tube, and after leaving the dirt, you have to enter platform with a SD line, which is speed drift, to the left side. During the platform loop, stay at the left and dive straight to the right after half of the loop. You should SD at the exit of the looping. After the exit of loop, dive straight to the left side of turbo. This will make you dive easier to the wall ride. I use this line as a visual cue and try to make small adjustments for the exit, and you have to look straight to the turbo for maximum efficiency. Try not to slide and stay inside until the platform. When you drop to the platform, protect your SD until the dirt jump and set up yourself to the ice wall. To get a good ice wall, you have to go as high as possible without gaining airtime. This is so important. If you go lower, you lose speed. If you go way too high, you'll end up gaining airtime and lose so much time. You have to find an optimal line during the uphill. Stay full diagonal on the ice and try to keep your speed. Remember, more inputs equals less speed. Unlike 12, this track is almost full ice, so it's full nice if you know how to do it. Let's see what to do on this track. Start is press forward, and do not air brake, you need the bumpy speed. This will set up you for a lower jump, and try to jump on the left side for early landing and better slope angle. Execute an ice slide from very outside to inside, be careful to not get an oversteer. Release for a millisecond when you need to straighten your car and try to end up near the snow. You will accelerate more on platform. Enter the looping from the very left side and try to maintain minimum slide while passing right side of the loop. When entering to the ice, do a micro release to avoid gear up. If you get a gear up, you will end up sliding instantly. Maintain your ice slide with micro brake taps. The slope itself will straighten your cars, so usually you don't have to release to straighten your car. The platform is straightforward, but the ice entrance is exceptional. You have to be fast, but you have to prepare for a good line for the next slide simultaneously. What you have to do is taking the penalty snow intentionally and go inside, and you have to micro release at the apex of the turn, so you dive outside to inside perfectly and generate way more speed than the inside line. At the straight, you prepare yourself for the turbo, because while you're in the turbo zone, your car gains more grip, so you dive left to the right with an instant air brake to prepare a controlled ice slide. Most important part here is you can easily oversteer, so be aware of that. And there is the most important part for me. The transition between left to the right is quite tricky. You have to find a spot where you go diagonal and inside to the sharp turn, because you will release until the inside line. The reason to do that is you want to enter here with lower gear. In that way, you can go fully inside and gain so much time here. This sector is quite hard, so you need some training to execute that, but you have the idea to what to do. This track's overall theme is good exit speeds for me. Feel the flow and you will be fast. Oh boy, this is my favorite track of the campaign. I won't be using the world record footage here for the first half because it's literally insane. I'm sorry, Mime. This track has a huge decisive part that could potentially make you fast. Like, really fast. So, let's dive straight in. At the start, I go press forward here until I lose ground contact. At air, I instantly turn with 30%, same applies with the second jump as well. But to the right. Staying inside at the sharp turn and bobsleigh is actually so important. This part can decide a point for just with one gear. You want to jump with bobsleighs, bump and land as early as possible so you can generate speed for bobsleigh. Try to land as right as possible on the bobsleigh, with 50% steering in bobsleigh as well. Just before the exit of bobsleigh, I do a right turn to keep control and I got the gear on platform. Maintain lowest air time while jumping to the grass. Try to jump as flat as possible. In that way, you can get a higher wall, so you can generate more speed. Make as less inputs as possible during the wall ride, and there is the most decisive part of the track. You want to approach this turn while your car is looking a little to the left. Then do a hard right turn with a small release for inside line. With release, you can turn right easier. Your goal is to go as close as to the flags and end up just before the turbos. I oversteer here when I just pass the apex and I have much easier time to straighten my car. I release for a millisecond at the top of the hill. That way I can turn way more easier. I know it's quite cheap setup, but it worked out. After the turbos, I want to jump diagonal to maintain my speed for the grass and stay inside. Then jump to the very right of the grass slope, jump as low as possible for the maximum acceleration. Don't forget to wiggle for more speed if you can. My bobsleigh on this record is really bad, so I will use Alcon's world record. What you want to do here is stay left, jump while your car is looking somehow right. That way you prepare for a perfect bobsleigh and prevent acceleration penalty from real left tire. I use 50% steer movement for the bobsleigh, but you are fast, so don't afraid to correct your car. Just before the exit of bobsleigh, you want to make counter steer to the left and maintain more exit speed. Then take an inside turn, finally finish off with 30% steering jump on the water, and voila! This track is an intense one. Once you get into the mood of the track, you can really understand what's going on and improve your decision makings on ice. So it's a big training field. It takes time, but you will see you are improving in a short amount of time. That's it for this video. I really do hope you learned something. If you have any questions, you can ask on comments or on Twitch. If I mistaken anything, apologies to ice players, and I want to thank to my chat that they gave me enough morale to make this happen. Until the next video, take care and peace out.